When my daughter-in-law stood up at the head of my dining room table, tapped her wine glass with a fork, and announced to 23 guests that I was a charity case, who should be grateful they allowed me to attend their Thanksgiving dinner, I didn't say a word. I just smiled. Because what Chelsea didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I owned that house. I owned the table she was standing at, and I had paid for every single bite of food she was taking credit for. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Me, and this is a story about silence, sacrifice, and the moment I finally spoke up. Let me take you back to where this all started, because to understand what happened that Thanksgiving, you need to understand the 28 years that came before it. Normal life, the foundation I built. I was 57 years old when this story really begins, though the roots go back much further. I'd been a widow for 4 years by then. My husband, Richard, passed away suddenly from a heart attack, leaving me with grief, memories, and fortunately, financial security. Richard had been a careful man, a planner. He'd worked as a civil engineer for 33 years, and together we'd saved, invested, and paid off our mortgage years early. When he died, I inherited everything: the house, his life insurance, his pension, and a substantial retirement fund. Our son, Marcus, was 32 when Richard passed. He'd always been a sweet boy, maybe a little too soft-hearted for his own good, but kind. After his father died, Marcus checked on me constantly, called every day, stopped by twice a week. For 2 years, it was just us navigating grief together, and I was grateful for him. Then he met Chelsea. I remember the first time Marcus brought her to Sunday dinner. She was 28, beautiful in that polished way where everything matches perfectly: her purse, her shoes, her lipstick. She worked in marketing for a tech startup and talked quickly about things I didn't quite understand. Brands, influencers, market positioning. She barely touched my pot roast. Mom makes the best pot roast in the county, Marcus said proudly, squeezing my hand. Chelsea smiled with just her mouth. It's very traditional. I should have paid more attention to that smile. Looking back, I can see it was the same smile she'd give me for the next 6 years, the one that never reached her eyes, the one that said I was quaint, outdated, in the way. But I was lonely. Richard was gone, and Marcus was happy. And when you lose your partner of 35 years, you grab onto any warmth you can find. So when Marcus announced they were engaged after only 8 months of dating, I smiled and hugged Chelsea and told myself to be happy. The wedding was expensive. Chelsea wanted everything just right: the venue, the flowers, the photographer who'd shot some celebrity's wedding. Marcus came to me 3 months before the ceremony looking worried. "Mom, I hate to ask this, but..." Chelsea's parents said they'd pay for half, and we were supposed to cover the other half, but with the down payment, we're trying to save for a house. He trailed off, looking at his hands the way he used to when he was 7 and had broken something. I didn't even hesitate. "How much do you need, sweetheart?" $22,000. I wrote the check that same day. It was a significant chunk of money, but I had it, and he was my only child. Richard would have done the same. When I handed Marcus the check, he hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "I'll pay you back, Mom. I promise. As soon as we're on our feet. Don't worry about it," I said, smoothing his hair the way I'd done when he was small. "That's what mothers do." Chelsea sent me a thank you card, printed, not handwritten, that said, "Thank you for your contribution to our special day." Not a wedding gift, a contribution. The wedding was beautiful, I won't deny that. But during the reception, I noticed something when people asked about the stunning floral arrangements or the elaborate cake. Chelsea smiled and said, "We really wanted to make this perfect. We, not Marcus's mother, helped us. I told myself it didn't matter. The wedding wasn't about credit. It was about their happiness. They moved into a small apartment after the honeymoon, and I saw Marcus less. Not dramatically less. At first, just less, once a week instead of twice, every other Sunday instead of every Sunday. Phone calls became texts. Chelsea was always busy networking events, work functions, brunches with Her friends, Marcus, started saying things like, Chelsea thinks Sunday dinners are too heavy. We're trying to eat cleaner. A year into their marriage, they came to me with another request. The betrayal begins. It was a Saturday afternoon in October. I remember because I was raking leaves in the backyard when I heard the doorbell. Marcus and Chelsea stood on my porch, both dressed like they were going somewhere important afterward. Mom, do you have a minute? Marcus asked. We want to talk to you about something. We sat in my living room, the living room where Marcus had learned to walk, where we'd opened Christmas presents for 3 decades, where Richard and I had slow danced on our 30th anniversary. Chelsea perched on the edge of the sofa, like she was afraid the furniture might contaminate her cream-colored pants. So, Marcus started, glancing at Chelsea. We've been talking, and we're ready to buy a house. My heart lifted. Oh, honey, that's wonderful. The thing is, Chelsea cut in, her voice crisp and businesslike. The market is really competitive right now. To get the house we want in the neighborhood we want, we need to make a strong offer. We're looking at properties in the $650,000 range. I blinked. That seemed high, but I didn't know the market anymore. Richard and I had bought our house in 1987 for $89,000. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. We have some savings, but for the down payment. To avoid PMI and get a better rate, we'd need to put down 20%. That's $130,000. We have $90,000. Chelsea said, and I noticed she said we, not we've saved together, or between us, just we, like it was a single entity that she controlled. Short by $40,000. The silence stretched for a moment. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to ask, to explain, to show some of the discomfort that this request warranted. Instead, Chelsea leaned forward. We were hoping you could help us. Think of it as an early inheritance. You'd be setting us up for a strong financial future. Real estate is the best investment right now. Something about the way she said it, not as a favor, but as if I'd be stupid not to see the logic, made me uneasy. But then Marcus spoke. Mom, I know it's a lot, but you helped with the wedding, and I still haven't paid you back. I could put both together as a loan. We'd pay you back with interest. There was my son, the boy I'd raised, offering to make it right. You don't need to pay me back for the wedding. I said quietly, that was a gift. So, can you do it? Chelsea asked. The house we want just came on the market. We need to move fast. I should have said no. I should have suggested a smaller house, asked to see their finances, recommended they wait and save more. But Marcus looked so hopeful, and I genuinely thought that helping them would bring us closer, that I'd be invited over to their new home, that maybe there'd be grandchildren soon, and I'd be the grandmother who helped give them their first real home. I'll transfer the money on Monday, I said. Chelsea smiled that same smile from the pot roast dinner and said, Great, I'll text you the account information, and not thank you. Not we're so grateful, just great, like I'd confirmed a business transaction. Marcus hugged me at the door. You're the best, Mom, seriously. We'll have you over all the time once we're settled. I watched them drive away in Chelsea's Audi, and I felt a small flutter of unease in my chest. But I pushed it down. He was my son. This was what parents did. On Monday morning, I transferred $40,000 from my savings account to the account Chelsea had texted me. No thank you call came, no text, just a brief message 3 weeks later from Marcus. We got the house, closing next month. I wasn't invited to the closing. When they finally moved in, to a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in an upscale neighborhood 40 minutes from my house, I waited for the invitation to visit. It came 6 weeks later, phrased as a casual text from Marcus. Want to come see the place Sunday? Chelsea's making brunch. The house was stunning. Hardwood floors, granite countertops, a master bathroom bigger than my first apartment. Chelsea walked me through each room like a realtor, pointing out features and finishes. She'd already decorated everything modern art on the walls, sleek furniture. Not a single family photo in sight. Where's the room where you might put a nursery? I asked, trying to sound light and cheerful. Eventually, Chelsea's smile tightened. We're not planning on children for at least 5 years. We want to focus on our careers and travel. 5 years. I'd be 63. The flutter of unease grew stronger. During brunch, avocado toast and some kind of egg white scramble that tasted like cardboard, Chelsea mentioned casually, "We're already up $30 0 in equity. The house appraised higher than we paid. Best investment we ever made." I waited for Marcus to mention my help, to say, "Mom made this possible." But he just nodded and said, "Yeah, we got lucky with the timing." I drove home that afternoon feeling something I couldn't quite name. Not anger yet, not even hurt, really. Just a growing sense that I'd made a mistake, that I'd given something precious to someone who didn't value it. But I still didn't understand how bad things were about to get. That moment came 3 months later, in February, when I called Marcus about my birthday. I don't make a fuss about birthdays, but 60 felt significant. It was my first birthday in my 60s, my fourth without Richard, and I suppose I was feeling a little sorry for myself. I called Marcus on a Wednesday evening. "Hi, honey. I was wondering if maybe you and Chelsea might want to come over for dinner on my birthday. It's Saturday, nothing fancy. Just maybe we could order Chinese food and watch a movie like we used to." There was a pause, then Marcus said, "Oh, Mom, I'm sorry. Chelsea's company is having this big gala thing on Saturday. It's been planned for months. It's really important for her career." Oh, I tried to keep the disappointment out of my voice. "That's okay, maybe Sunday. We're driving to her parents' house Sunday. They have some family thing." "Hey, how about we take you out next week? Midweek maybe?" "Sure, honey, that would be nice." Next week came. Then the week after. Then a month had passed, and Marcus kept saying, "Soon, Mom. Things are just really busy." Chelsea had been promoted. They were renovating the basement. Chelsea's sister was visiting. There was always something. I spent my 60th birthday alone, eating leftover meatloaf and watching game shows, telling myself it was fine. People got busy. This was normal. It wasn't normal, but I still didn't see it. The next 18 months were a slow erosion. I didn't recognize it at first because it happened so gradually, like water wearing away stone. Marcus's calls became less frequent. Once a week became twice, a month became once a month. When I called him, I usually got voicemail. When he did call back, the conversations were short. "How are you doing, sweetheart?" I'd ask, "Good, good, busy. Hey, Mom, I'm actually heading into a meeting. Can I call you back?" He never called back. The few times I did see them, Chelsea dominated every conversation. She talked about her job, her promotions, her colleagues, her networking events. She talked about the furniture they were buying, the vacation they were planning to Italy, the Tesla they were thinking about leasing. She never asked about me. Not once did she say, "How are you, me?" or "What have you been up to?" Marcus would occasionally try to include me. "Mom's been volunteering at the library. Haven't you, Mom?" Before I could answer, Chelsea would pivot. "Speaking of books, did I tell you about the audiobook deal I landed for work? It's a huge account." I started to feel invisible in my own son's life. Then came the incident with Thanksgiving. It was early September when Marcus called. A Tuesday evening, which was unusual enough that I thought something might be wrong. "Hey, Mom." "So, Chelsea and I were talking, and we want to host Thanksgiving this year." My heart lifted. This was good news. They wanted to host. That meant family gatherings, meant they were thinking about traditions, meant I'd be included. "That sounds wonderful, honey. Your house is perfect for that. What can I bring? Should I make the sweet potato casserole, or maybe Grandma's apple pie?" There was a pause. "Actually, Chelsea wants to handle the cooking. She's been taking these gourmet cooking classes, and she wants to do a whole elevated Thanksgiving thing." Oh, I tried not to feel stung. "Okay. Well, I'm happy to help set up or clean up or..." Chelsea's got it all planned out. She's actually hiring a catering company to help with some of it. It's going to be really nice, kind of formal. That sounds lovely. What time should I arrive? Another pause, longer this time. The thing is, Mom, it's going to be a big gathering. Chelsea's inviting her whole family, plus some friends, plus some business contacts. It's kind of a networking thing, too, for her career. So she's being really particular about the head count and the seating chart and everything. A cold feeling started in my stomach. Marcus, are you saying I'm not invited to Thanksgiving? No, of course you're invited. Your family. I'm just saying it's going to be different than our usual thing. More formal. Chelsea's parents are even flying in from Connecticut. I didn't say what I was thinking. Asterisk, I'm your mother. And you're explaining to me that your wife's parents are coming, as if that's supposed to make me feel better about being an afterthought. Asterisk instead, I said, okay, honey. Just let me know what time and if there's anything specific I should bring or wear. Chelsea will send you details, he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice that I hadn't argued. Chelsea never sent details. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I texted Marcus, "Hi, sweetheart, just checking on Thanksgiving plans. What time and what can I bring?" He responded 6 hours later, "Chelsea's handling all the details. She said she'll reach out." A week before Thanksgiving, I texted again, "Hi, honey, haven't heard from Chelsea about Thursday. Want to make sure I have the right time." Marcus called this time, and I could hear tension in his voice. "Mom, Chelsea's really stressed about this whole thing. Can you just not add to it? She said she sent you an evite." "I never got an evite." "Well, check your spam folder." "Anyway, it's at 3 p.m. Cocktail hour starts at 3, dinner at 5. Should I bring?" "Don't bring anything. Chelsea's got it all handled. Just show up. Oh, and Mom, dress nice, like church nice. It's going to be a formal thing." That should have been warning enough, but I was so grateful to be included at all that I missed what was really happening. Thanksgiving morning, I woke at 6 a.m. and couldn't get back to sleep. I kept thinking about past Thanksgivings, Richard carving the turkey, Marcus stealing bites of stuffing before dinner, the comfortable chaos of a family meal. This would be different, I told myself, but different could be good. I chose my outfit carefully, the navy dress I'd worn to a friend's daughter's wedding, my pearl earrings, low heels. I looked at myself in the mirror and thought I looked presentable, formal enough for a formal Thanksgiving. I arrived at exactly 3 p.m., carrying only my purse because I'd been told not to bring anything. There were already 8 or 9 cars in the driveway and along the street. I could hear music and laughter from inside. I rang the doorbell and waited and waited. Finally, the door swung open and Chelsea stood there, in a burgundy silk dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She looked me up and down, and something flickered across her face. Disappointment, annoyance me. She said not "Hi" or "Happy Thanksgiving" or "Come in." Just my name, like she was checking me off a list. "Happy Thanksgiving, Chelsea." "The house looks beautiful," and it did. She'd hired someone to decorate. Fall wreaths, elaborate centerpieces, candles everywhere. She stepped back to let me in but didn't move far, so I had to squeeze past her. "Everyone's in the living room. There's a bar set up in the dining room." And then she walked away. I stood in the foyer, holding my purse, feeling like a guest who'd shown up to the wrong party. The house was full of people I didn't recognize. Chelsea's family, I assumed, along with others in expensive clothes holding expensive-looking cocktails. I spotted Marcus across the room, laughing with a group of men in suits. I made my way toward him. When he saw me, his face brightened. "Mom, you made it." He hugged me, and for a moment, everything felt okay. But then Chelsea appeared at his elbow. "Marcus, I need you to help me in the kitchen for a second." "Sure." "Mom, get yourself a drink. We'll catch up in a bit." They disappeared, and I was alone again. I won't drag you through every painful moment of the next 2 hours. Let me give you the highlights. I tried to make conversation with Chelsea's parents, who were polite but clearly not interested in talking to me. I was introduced to several of Chelsea's colleagues as Marcus's mother, but never by name. I overheard someone ask Chelsea who I was, and she responded, "Oh, that's my mother," daughter-in-law. She doesn't get out much. I sat in the living room nursing a glass of wine I didn't want, watching my son play host in the house I'd helped him buy, surrounded by people who treated me like furniture. Finally, at 5:15, Chelsea announced dinner was ready. Everyone moved to the dining room, where a massive table had been set for 24 people. Place cards marked each seat. I found mine at the very end of the table, furthest from the host's seats where Marcus and Chelsea sat, squeezed between two of Chelsea's cousins who spent the entire meal talking across me about people I didn't know. The food was served catered, as Marcus had mentioned, not made by Chelsea despite her gourmet cooking classes. Turkey, stuffing, green beans, mashed potatoes, all beautifully plated. It tasted fine, but I could barely eat. My throat felt tight. Then came the moment that changed everything. We were halfway through dinner when Chelsea stood up. She tapped her wine glass with a fork and the table fell silent. My first thought was that she was going to make a toast about gratitude or family. I was wrong. I just want to thank everyone for coming today. Chelsea began, her voice carrying that rehearsed quality of someone who speaks at corporate events. Marcus and I are so grateful to host you in our home for the first time. We've worked so hard to make this house exactly what we wanted, and it means so much to share it with all of you. People murmured appreciation. I felt a knot forming in my stomach when Marcus and I bought this house 2 years ago. We had a vision for what our life could be. We wanted a space where we could entertain, where we could build community, where we could create the life we'd always dreamed of. And we've done that through hard work, sacrifice, and smart financial decisions. The knot tightened. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to say something, to correct her, to acknowledge the truth. He was looking at his plate. We're especially grateful to have both our families here, Chelsea continued. My parents, who flew in from Connecticut. Thank you for always supporting us and teaching us the value of excellence. She raised her glass toward her parents, who beamed. Then her eyes landed on me, and of course, Marcus's mother, me, who we were happy to include today. We know it's hard for her, being alone, and we wanted to make sure she had somewhere to go for the holiday. It's important to us to take care of family, even when it means going out of our way. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt every eye at that table turn toward me. Chelsea's smile was bright and charitable, like she'd just announced a donation to the needy. Something inside me went very cold and very still. She continued, oblivious or uncaring. I still don't know which. So let's raise our glasses to family, to gratitude, and to the wonderful life we're building. Cheers, cheers. Everyone echoed, glasses clinking. I didn't raise my glass. I sat there, frozen, understanding with perfect clarity what had just happened. Chelsea had just announced to a room full of people that I was a charity case, a burden, someone they'd generously allowed to attend their dinner in their house that they'd worked so hard for, the house I'd helped them buy, the dinner I was sitting at the least important seat for, the son who was still staring at his plate, who had said nothing. Chelsea sat down, looking pleased with herself. Her mother leaned over and whispered something to her, and they both laughed. I should have stood up right then. I should have walked out, but I didn't. I sat there for another hour and a half, through dessert and coffee, through more conversations that excluded me, through hugs and goodbyes between people who'd actually wanted to be there. When I finally got up to leave, I found Marcus in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, leaving already. "Mom?" he asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "It's been a long day," I said quietly. "Thank you for having me." I couldn't say what I wanted to say. How could you let her talk about me that way? How could you sit there and say nothing? Do you know what she did? Instead, I hugged him goodbye. He felt stiff in my arms. Chelsea was at the door, saying goodbye to another guest. She turned to me with that same bright smile. "Thanks for coming, me. Hope you had a nice time." I really looked at her, for a long moment. Then I said very quietly, so only she could hear, "Yes." Very illuminating. I saw confusion flicker across her face, but I didn't wait for a response. I walked out to my car, got in, and sat in the dark driveway for 10 minutes before I trusted myself to drive. That's when everything changed. That's when I stopped being a grieving widow trying to stay connected to her son and became someone else entirely. Someone who understood that silence had been mistaken for weakness. Someone who was done being generous to people who saw generosity as stupidity. I drove home, walked into my house, my fully paid-off house that Richard and I had worked 3 decades to own, and I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and a notepad, and I started making a list. Discovery phase, the truth comes out. The day after Thanksgiving, I woke up with unusual clarity. The hurt was still there. I won't pretend it wasn't, but it had crystallized into something else. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. I started with a simple question. What had I actually given them? I went to my filing cabinet and pulled out records. The wedding, $22,000. The house down payment, $40,000. But there was more I'd forgotten about. When Chelsea's car broke down a year ago, who'd given them $40,000 for repairs, me. When they needed furniture for the new house, who'd sent them $2,500 as a housewarming gift, me. Birthday checks to Marcus, Christmas gifts. That got more expensive each year because Chelsea always mentioned how much her family spent. I totaled it all up. Over 6 years, I had given or loaned them $71,800. Not once had they paid any of it back. Not once had Marcus even mentioned repayment after that initial promise about the house down payment. But that wasn't what bothered me most. Money was just money, and I'd given it freely. What bothered me was the pattern I was seeing now that I was actually looking. I opened my laptop and went through old text messages, emails, call logs. The data told a story. Over the past 2 years, I'd initiated 87% of our contact. Marcus called me maybe once a month. I called or texted him 2 or 3 times a week. He rarely answered, and when he did respond, it was brief. I thought about holidays. I'd been invited to Christmas last year, but it was at Chelsea's parents' house in Connecticut, a 6-hour drive. When I'd said that was too far for me to drive alone, Chelsea had said, "Okay, no problem. Not will help you figure it out. Or maybe we can do something when we get back." Just okay, no problem. I'd spent Christmas alone. I thought about the times I'd invited them to my house. In 2 years, they'd come maybe 4 times, always briefly, always with Chelsea looking at her watch. The evidence was overwhelming. I'd been edited out of my son's life so gradually that I hadn't noticed it happening. And Chelsea had orchestrated all of it. But why? That answer came 3 days later, in the most unexpected way. I went to the grocery store on Monday morning, my regular shopping day. I was in the produce section, examining tomatoes when I heard my name. Me Henderson. I turned to see Janet Russo, a woman I'd known casually for years. She'd been Richard's colleague's wife, and we'd had dinner together a few times before Richard passed. "Janet, how are you?" We chatted for a few minutes, catching up. Then Janet said something that made my blood run cold. "I saw your son at Thanksgiving, actually. Well, not in person. My daughter is friends with Chelsea on social media, and Chelsea posted all these pictures from their Thanksgiving dinner. It looked incredible. That house is gorgeous. Yes, they did a beautiful job with it," I said carefully. Janet leaned in conspiratorially. "Between you and me, my daughter said Chelsea's always posting about their lifestyle. The house, the cars, the vacations. My daughter jokes that Chelsea's whole personality is showing off how successful they are. She even posts about how they did it all themselves, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, never asked anyone for help. Very self-made millennial couple energy, you know." My hands tightened on my grocery cart. "Is that so?" "Oh yeah? Apparently she's building some kind of personal brand. She wants to be a lifestyle influencer or something. Posts about financial independence and smart investments. My daughter finds it a little much, honestly, but I guess that's how young people are now." We talked for a few more minutes, but I barely heard it. When I got home, I did something I'd never done before. I looked up Chelsea on social media. I didn't have accounts on these platforms myself. I'd never seen the point, but you can view public profiles without logging in. I typed Chelsea's name into the search bar and found her immediately. Her profile was a carefully curated highlight reel of success. Photos of her and Marcus at expensive restaurants. Pictures of their house with captions like "so grateful for this space we created." Vacation photos from places I didn't even know they'd been: Iceland, Thailand, Napa Valley. And interspersed with the images were long captions about their journey. I read through them with growing disbelief. Here's what Chelsea had written 3 months ago, alongside a photo of their kitchen. 5 years ago, Em and I were broke newlyweds in a tiny apartment, eating ramen and dreaming of the future. We made a pact: no handouts, no shortcuts, just hard work and smart choices. Today, we own a $700K home. Yes, it's appreciated, drive paid, off cars, and have zero debt. We did this through discipline, sacrifice, and believing in ourselves. If we can do it, anyone can. #financial freedom, #self-made, #no handouts, #millennial success. I read it 3 times, each time feeling a new wave of rage. No handouts. I scrolled further back and found more. A post from their wedding anniversary. 2 years ago, we planned our dream wedding entirely on our own dime. It wasn't easy, but we refused to burden our families with our choices. That independence made the day even sweeter. #adulting right, #financial independence, entirely on our own dime. I had paid for half their wedding. There was more, so much more. Posts about their furniture, saved for 6 months to buy this couch. I'd given them $500 for furniture. Posts about their success. What's possible when you live within your means and don't rely on anyone else. Posts with advice for other young couples. Don't ask your parents for money. You'll never learn financial responsibility if someone's always bailing you out. I sat there staring at my laptop screen and understood this was why. This was why she'd rewritten history, why she'd excluded me, why she'd humiliated me at Thanksgiving. I was evidence that contradicted her narrative. I was the proof that they weren't self-made, that they'd had help, that the life she was packaging and posting and building a brand around was built on my money and my silence, and Marcus had let her do it. Whether out of weakness or complicity, he'd allowed his wife to erase me and the help I'd given them. That afternoon, I made a phone call. Jacobson and Stein, attorneys at law. "Hello," I said, my voice steady. "I'd like to schedule a consultation. It's regarding family financial matters, planning phase, preparing my response." The attorney I met with was named Linda Stein, a woman in her early 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. I'd chosen her carefully, specifically because she specialized in family law and elder financial protection. I showed her everything: bank statements, canceled checks, text messages, emails, screenshots of Chelsea's social media posts. I explained the pattern, the money I'd given, the promises that were never kept, the gradual exclusion, the Thanksgiving humiliation. Linda listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "I'm going to ask you a hard question. What do you want the outcome to be here?" I'd thought about this. I want my son back. I want him to see what his wife is doing and what he's become, but I also want. I paused, searching for the right words. I want them to understand that my kindness wasn't weakness, that staying silent didn't mean I was stupid or that I didn't notice. I want accountability. Linda nodded slowly. Here's the legal reality. Most of what you gave them would be considered gifts, not loans, unless you have written agreements stating repayment terms. Do you have any such agreements? No, Marcus verbally promised to repay the house down payment, but I never asked him to sign anything. Then legally, they don't owe you that money. However, she held up a hand as my face fell. That doesn't mean you're without recourse. There are several angles we can explore. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. First, if they've been claiming financial hardship while posting on social media about their self-made success, that's relevant. Second, if you can demonstrate a pattern of manipulation or Financial exploitation, especially given your status as a widow. That builds a case. Third, and this is important, do they have anything that belongs to you? Property, items, anything you could legally claim? I thought about this. Not really. Everything I gave was money or gifts I bought for them. What about the house itself? You said you gave them the down payment. Is your name on any paperwork? No. Marcus said Chelsea wanted everything in both their names, and I said that was fine. Linda tapped her pen against the pad. All right, then here's what I'd recommend. We draft a formal letter. Not a demand for repayment, that would be legally weak, but a detailed accounting of the financial support you provided with specific dollar amounts and dates. We send copies to both Marcus and Chelsea, certified mail. The letter requests a meeting to discuss family financial matters and future expectations. What will that accomplish? Several things. First, it formally documents your contributions, which they've been publicly denying. Second, it puts them on notice that you're aware of the situation and taking it seriously. Third, it opens the door for negotiation, but most importantly, it shows your son that you're not going to be treated this way anymore. Sometimes that's enough to shock someone into recognition. And if it's not enough, Linda's smile was grim, then we escalate. There are other options requiring repayment of loans if we can establish they were loans, taking legal action if we can prove exploitation, even consulting with adult protective services if there's evidence of financial abuse of a vulnerable adult. But let's start with the letter and see how they respond. I hired Linda that day and spent the next week working with her to document everything, every dollar, every promise, every slight. It was painful seeing it all laid out in black and white, but it was also clarifying. The letter was sent on December 10th, exactly 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. Linda sent it to their house via certified mail, return receipt requested, and also emailed a copy to both Marcus's and Chelsea's email addresses. Now all I had to do was wait. The call came 3 days later. I was in my kitchen making tea. When my phone rang, Marcus's name lit up the screen. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. Hello, sweetheart, Mom. His voice was strained, angry almost. What the hell is this letter? I sat down at the kitchen table, my hand perfectly steady as I set down my teacup. I assume you mean the accounting of financial gifts I've provided over the last 6 years. It's not. Mom, why are you doing this? Why are you involving lawyers? If you wanted to talk about money, you could have just called me. The irony of that statement coming from a son who never answered my calls was almost funny, but I kept my voice calm. Marcus, I tried to talk to you at Thanksgiving. I've tried to talk to you for 2 years. You don't have time. That's not fair. We're busy, but did you read the letter? The full letter? Yes, Chelsea and I both read it. Then you saw the part where it lists $1,800 in financial assistance I've provided since your wedding. Silence. Did you also happen to see your wife's social media posts, Marcus? The ones where she talks about how you did everything yourselves. The ones where she says no handouts. Mom, those posts are they're not literal. Everyone knows social media is just highlights. No, Marcus. Everyone doesn't know that. Her followers don't know that she's lying. My friends who have seen those posts don't know that. And at Thanksgiving, when she stood up in the house I helped you buy and announced that I was a charity case you'd graciously included, that wasn't a highlight reel. That was her telling everyone I was a burden. She didn't mean it that way. How did she mean it then? My voice was still calm, but I could feel something building inside me. Explain to me how telling a room full of people that I don't get out much and that you were taking care of family even when it means going out of your way was anything other than humiliating me. Mom, you're overreacting. Chelsea was just trying to maintain the fiction that your self-made success stories. And you sat there while she erased me, while she rewrote history, while she turned your mother into an embarrassing obligation. That's not what happened. Then tell me, Marcus, When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you invited me to your house when it wasn't a major holiday? When was the last time you acknowledged to anyone that I helped you? The silence stretched so long I thought he might have hung up. Then, quietly, Mom, we're grateful for everything you've done. You know that. No, sweetheart, I don't know that. Grateful people say thank you. Grateful people stay in touch. Grateful people don't let their mother sit at the end of the table like a stranger. What do you want? His voice broke a little. What do you want from us? It was the right question, finally. I want you to read that letter again. Really read it. I want you to look at what your wife is posting online, what she's saying, and ask yourself if that's the man you want to be. Someone who lets his mother be erased. And then I want you to decide what kind of relationship we're going to have going forward. Are you threatening to cut me off? No, Marcus, I'm saying I already have been cut off. I'm just acknowledging it and deciding that I'm done pretending everything is fine. Mom, I love you, sweetheart. I always have and I always will, but I'm done being treated like I'm worthless. You and Chelsea need to decide what you value. I've already decided what I deserve. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking now, but I felt something I hadn't felt in years, powerful, clear, done apologizing for taking up space in my own son's life. The next call came 4 hours later. This time it was Chelsea. Me, we need to talk about this ridiculous letter. No greeting, no pretense of civility, just straight to attack mode. Hello, Chelsea, what about it? You're making us sound like we used you, and that's not what happened. You offered to help. We didn't ask for most of that money. I pulled up the notes I'd been keeping. Actually, you asked for all of it. The wedding, you and Marcus came to me together. The house down payment, you came to me. The car repair, you texted me. Should I go on? Those were requests, not demands. You could have said no. You're absolutely right, Chelsea. I could have said no, just like you could have said thank you. Just like you could have acknowledged that help in any of the 247 social media posts you've made about your self-made success. You've been counting my posts. Her voice was incredulous, like I was the crazy one. No, Chelsea, my lawyer was. The same lawyer who's very interested in the fact that you've built a personal brand, one you're apparently trying to monetize based on a complete fiction. You do know that fraud is illegal, right? Fraud? Are you insane? I haven't committed fraud, haven't you? You're presenting yourself as a financial expert who achieved success through your own efforts. You're giving advice to other young people based on that false narrative. If you're making money from that platform, through sponsorships or advertising or whatever it is you influencers do, and the foundation of that platform is a lie, that's fraud. Or at minimum, it's misrepresentation. The silence on the other end told me I'd hit a nerve. Let me guess. I continued, my voice still calm. You've been trying to grow your following. Maybe even pitching yourself to brands as a financial success story. Maybe hoping to land some sponsorship deals. That's none of your business. Actually, Chelsea, it became my business when you made me part of your story. When you spent Thanksgiving announcing to a room full of people, some of whom you're trying to impress for your career, that I'm a charity case. When you've repeatedly told people you did this all yourself while erasing my contributions, you made it my business. What do you want? The question was sharp, angry. I want you to tell the truth. I want a public acknowledgement of the help you received. I want you to stop pretending you're self-made when you're not. And I want you to treat me with basic human dignity. And if we don't, here's where I played the card Linda and I had prepared. Then my lawyer files a detailed complaint with the Federal Trade Commission about influencer fraud. She also sends a comprehensive dossier to every brand you've ever pitched or partnered with, documenting the discrepancies between your public claims and reality. And she files a civil suit for financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, that's me. A widow who was manipulated into providing substantial financial support under false pretenses. You can't prove manipulation, can't I? I have text messages from you talking about how close we'd be after you got the house, how I'd be welcome anytime, how grateful you were. I have documentation of how quickly you cut off contact after receiving money. I have records of you actively excluding me from family events, and I have your own social media posts contradicting everything you told me. A jury might find that very interesting. You wouldn't actually sue us. Marcus is your son. You're right, Chelsea. Marcus is my son, and you've spent 6 years systematically removing me from his life while spending my money. So let me ask you, how much do you think I have to lose at this point? The silence stretched for almost a minute. When Chelsea spoke again, her voice had changed. The anger was gone, replaced by something calculating. What exactly are you asking for? I'm asking for a family meeting this Friday evening at my house. You, Marcus, and me. We sit down and we have an honest conversation about the future. You acknowledge what actually happened. We establish new boundaries and we figure out if there's a path forward. And if we agree to this meeting, you drop the legal threats. If you agree to this meeting and come in good faith, I'll hold off on legal action pending the outcome of our conversation. Fine. We'll be there Friday at 7. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat at my kitchen table, still holding the phone, and realized my heart was racing. I'd done it. I'd drawn the line. Now I just had to see if my son would choose to step back across it. The meeting, Truth and Reckoning Friday, came. I spent the day cleaning my house, not because it needed it, but because I needed to do something with my hands. I made coffee. I set out cookies I'd baked that morning, Marcus's favorite recipe, the one I'd made throughout his childhood. At exactly 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. They stood on my porch looking like they were facing a firing squad. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. Chelsea's face was a mask of controlled anger. Come in, I said simply. They sat on the sofa, the same sofa where we'd sat when they asked for the house down payment. I took the armchair across from them, the one that had been Richard's favorite. I imagined him beside me, giving me strength. Thank you for coming, I started. Chelsea cut in immediately. Let's just get this over with. What exactly do you want from us, me? I want to understand something first, I said, looking at Marcus. When did you decide I didn't matter anymore? Marcus's head snapped up. Mom, I never. You let your wife tell a room full of people I was a charity case. You've spent 2 years gradually cutting me out of your life. You've taken $1,000 from me and never once said thank you, at least not in a way that mattered. So I'm asking, when did you decide I didn't matter? That's not fair, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Marcus, you used to call me 3 times a week. We used to have Sunday dinners. You used to tell me about your life, ask about mine. When did that stop? Things change, Chelsea interjected. People grow up, they build their own lives. You can't expect Marcus to remain attached to you like a child forever. I never expected him to remain a child. I expected him to remain my son. There's a difference. I turned back to Marcus. Do you know that I spent my 60th birthday alone? Do you even remember my birthday? His face went pale. He'd forgotten. Do you know that I've called you 60? 3 times in the last 6 months, and you've answered 8 times. Do you know that the last time you asked me how I was doing was in March? It's December, Marcus. I didn't realize, he started. No, you didn't realize. Because Chelsea made sure you wouldn't. I shifted my gaze to her. You saw me as a threat from the beginning, didn't you? That's ridiculous, Chelsea said. Is it? You wanted a self-made success story. You wanted to build this image of a couple that pulled themselves up without help. But there I was, evidence of assistance, so you systematically pushed me out. You made sure Marcus saw less of me. You controlled the narrative about where your money came from. And when you had to include me like at Thanksgiving, you made sure everyone knew I was there on your terms as an act of charity. You're being paranoid, Chelsea said, but there was a tremor in her Voice now, am I? Then let's look at your social media right now. Pull out your phone. Show Marcus your posts about being self-made. I don't have to prove anything to you. No, but you do have to prove it to him. I looked at Marcus. Have you actually read what she posts? Sweetheart, have you seen how she talks about your life? Marcus looked at Chelsea. Let me see your phone. Marcus, this is ridiculous. Let me see it. Reluctantly, Chelsea pulled out her phone and handed it to him. I watched his face as he scrolled. As he read the posts I'd already memorized, I watched realization dawn in his eyes. No handouts. He said quietly, Chelsea, my mom gave us $40,000 for the house. That was a gift, not a handout. We did this entirely on our own dime. He continued reading. This is about our wedding. Mom paid for half our wedding. It's just social media, Marcus. Everyone exaggerates. The best thing we ever did was refuse to let our parents bail us out. His voice was getting louder. Chelsea, we asked my mom to bail us out 4 different times. I was building a brand. I was creating content. You know this is how social media works. Not by erasing my mother. Not by lying about where our success came from. It was the first time I'd heard Marcus defend me in 2 years, and something in my chest loosened. Marcus, you're overreacting, Chelsea said, but I could hear panic creeping into her voice. Your mom is making a big deal out of nothing. So what if I simplified things for social media? So what if I didn't mention every little bit of help we got? That's normal. What about Thanksgiving? I asked quietly. Was that normal, Chelsea? Telling everyone I was someone you had to take care of? Making me feel like an obligation. I was trying to be nice. I was acknowledging you. You were humiliating me. You were making sure everyone in that room knew I was there on your sufferance, not because I was Marcus's mother and had every right to be there. Marcus stood up suddenly. I need some air. He walked to the window, his back to both of us. Chelsea and I sat in silence for a moment. Then she said, quietly, What do you want, me? Money? Is that what this is about? You want us to pay you back? No, Chelsea, I don't want you to pay me back. I want you to tell the truth. What truth? All of it. I want you to post on your social media that you had help, that your in-laws helped you, that your success isn't entirely self-made. I want you to acknowledge reality. That will ruin everything I've built. No, it won't. It will make you honest. There's nothing wrong with accepting help. There's everything wrong with lying about it and then treating the people who helped you like their burdens. Marcus turned from the window. His eyes were red. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. I should have, but I didn't. Marcus, don't let her manipulate you. Chelsea said sharply, manipulate me. Chelsea, she gave us $70,000. She came to Thanksgiving and sat at the end of the table like a stranger, and I said nothing. How is she the one manipulating anyone? Because she's trying to come between us. Can't you see that? She's jealous of our relationship, of our success, and she's using this lawyer and these threats to stop. Marcus's voice was firm in a way I hadn't heard in years. Just stop, Chelsea. I've read these posts. I've heard what you said at Thanksgiving. My mom isn't the problem here. Chelsea stood up, her face flushed with anger. Fine. If you're going to take her side over your wife's, then maybe you need to think about what's more important to you. Your marriage or your mommy. The cruelty of that statement hung in the air. Marcus looked at his wife for a long moment. Then he said quietly, My mother has been nothing but generous to us. She's never asked for anything but basic respect. And you've treated her like garbage while spending her money. So yeah, Chelsea, right now I'm taking her side. Chelsea grabbed her purse. I'm leaving. When you come to your senses, you know where to find me. She stormed toward the door, then turned back, and me. If you think I'm going to post some groveling apology and ruin my reputation because you're feeling sensitive, you're delusional. Sue me if you want. See what happens. She slammed the door on her way out. Marcus and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Mom, I don't know how to fix this. Start by telling me the truth. Sweetheart, did you know? Did you see what was happening? He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then, yes and no. I saw you less, but I told myself we were just busy. I noticed Chell. She didn't like it when I spent too much time on the phone with you, so I called less. I read her posts, but I didn't think about them critically, and Thanksgiving. He put his head in his hands. I heard what she said, and I felt sick, but I told myself I was overreacting. That you wouldn't mind, that it wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal, Marcus. I know that now. I'm so sorry, Mom. I chose the easy path. I let Chelsea take the lead because it was simpler than standing up to her. And I let her push you out because resisting would have meant conflict in my marriage. What are you going to do now? He looked up at me with Richard's eyes honest and scared and trying to be brave. I'm going to go home and have a very serious conversation with my wife. I'm going to tell her that how she's treated you is unacceptable, and it has to change. And if she won't change, he trailed off, Marcus, I don't want to be the reason your marriage ends. You're not, Mom. Her behavior is, her choices are. I love Chelsea, but I don't like who I've become with her. I don't like that I forgot your birthday. I don't like that I let you sit at the end of that table. I don't like that I've spent 2 years making excuses for treating you badly. We talked for 2 more hours that night, really talked the way we used to. Marcus apologized over and over. He asked questions about how I'd been, what I'd been doing, and he actually listened to the answers. He cried when I told him about spending my birthday alone. He got angry when I showed him the full documentation of how much I'd given them and how thoroughly Chelsea had erased it. When he finally left, he hugged me at the door for a long time. I love you, Mom. And I'm going to make this right. Whatever it takes, aftermath, the resolution. I won't pretend everything magically fixed itself overnight. Life doesn't work that way, especially when the damage goes so deep. Marcus went home that night and had it out with Chelsea. He told me later that she refused to see anything wrong with her behavior, refused to apologize, and ultimately gave him an ultimatum: accept things as they were. Or leave. He chose to leave. They separated 2 weeks before Christmas. Marcus moved into a short-term rental while they figured out the details. Chelsea was furious. At him, at me, at the situation. She posted a vague message on social media about toxic family members and setting boundaries, and her followers ate it up, sending her messages of support. But then something interesting happened. Linda, my attorney, sent the detailed dossier we'd prepared to 3 brands Chelsea had been courting for sponsorship deals, not as blackmail, but as a professional courtesy. Companies have a right to know who they're partnering with. Those companies quietly withdrew their interest. Then someone who'd been at the Thanksgiving dinner, I never found out who, left a detailed comment on one of Chelsea's posts about the reality of that day, how Chelsea had humiliated her mother-in-law who'd helped fund their lifestyle, how the self-made story was a fabrication. The comment went viral in Chelsea's small corner of social media. Other people who knew them started adding their perspectives. Chelsea's carefully constructed brand began to crumble. She tried to do damage control, but the truth was out there now. Her follower count dropped, brand partnerships evaporated, the life she'd been building on false foundations collapsed. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a grim satisfaction watching it happen, but mostly I felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that someone so young had been so willing to use people and lie and hurt others for something as meaningless as social media clout. Marcus and Chelsea's divorce was finalized 8 months later. The house, the one I'd helped them buy, was sold. After the mortgage was paid off and assets divided, Marcus received a check for $186,000, his half of the equity. He came to my house the day he got that check. He sat at my kitchen table and said, "Mom, I know this doesn't come close to covering what you gave us, but I want you to have it, all of it." I looked at my son, at the man he was working to become again, and I shook my head. "No, sweetheart. Keep it. Use it as a down payment on your own place. Build the life you want, but this time do it honestly. And don't forget where you came from. Mom, I don't need the money, Marcus. I needed my son back. And I have him. It's been a year now since that Thanksgiving dinner, and life looks different. Marcus lives in a small condo about 15 minutes from my house. He comes over for Sunday dinner every week without fail. We talk on the phone 3 or 4 times a week, real conversations, not rushed check-ins. He remembers my birthday and holidays and the anniversary of his father's death. He's seeing a therapist to work through how he lost himself in his marriage and why he let it happen. We're rebuilding our relationship slowly, carefully, and it's better than before because it's honest now. There are no more unspoken resentments, no more silent scorekeeping. When something bothers one of us, we talk about it. Chelsea, last I heard, had moved to another state and deleted all her social media accounts. I don't wish ill on her. I hope she learned something from all this, though I suspect people like that rarely do. Some people go through life blaming everyone but themselves for their problems. As for me, I learned something important. Silence is a choice, and sometimes it's the wrong choice. For years, I stayed silent because I thought that's what good mothers did. We sacrifice without acknowledgement. We give without expectation. We swallow our hurt to keep the peace. But silence can be mistaken for acceptance. My silence allowed Chelsea to believe she could rewrite history, allowed Marcus to avoid facing what he was doing, allowed me to be erased from my own son's life. When I finally spoke up, everything changed. Not immediately, not easily. But truly, I learned that speaking up doesn't make you difficult, it makes you honest. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish, it makes you healthy. Demanding respect doesn't make you demanding, it makes you dignified. And I learned that real love, the kind that matters, can survive truth. Marcus and I are closer now than we've been in years because our relationship is built on honesty, not obligation or guilt or unspoken debts. If you're listening to this and you're in a similar situation, being taken for granted, being erased, being treated like your generosity is an obligation rather than a gift, please hear me. You deserve better. You don't have to be cruel. You don't have to seek revenge. You don't have to match their ugliness with your own. But you do have to speak up. You have to set boundaries. You have to make it clear that love without respect isn't really love at all. I spent 4 years being a widow trying to hold on to my son through any means necessary, even if it meant accepting disrespect and erasure. I thought that's what mothers did. We endured, we sacrificed, we stayed silent. But Richard didn't raise his son to treat people that way, and I dishonored both Richard's memory and my own self-worth by accepting it. The day I stood up for myself was the day I got my son back, and that's a lesson I wish I'd learned sooner. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is to refuse to let them treat you badly. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Remember, every story has a lesson, and yours might be just beginning. My name is me, and I'm still learning, still growing, still standing up for myself, and I'm finally truly at peace.